and McCollum Wellness Radio. In my life there came a time when I had to make a change. You know, the things just weren't right. I looked around for someone else to blame. I searched and I searched and I reached down inside. And I knew when I found there's a light I can hide. I can be free, I can be free. I can rise above, I can be free, I can be free. I will rise above. Good afternoon, everybody. It is Dr. Duncan McCollum, McCollum Wellness Radio, and very excited to be here today. It's a nice, cool day in Santa Cruz, a little bit overcast, but it's very comfortable. Maybe my Scottish lineage has me appreciate that kind of weather. Anyway, today is Saturday, and I'm here to give you guys some of my thoughts. I appreciate you all listening out there. I appreciate KSCO Radio for allowing me and others like me, free thinkers, to be up here and, you know, just talk about what we find works and doesn't work in our lives and with the people that we touch. The last couple of weeks, I did a review of a couple books, and I think I'll do one this week as well. Last week, after Tom Quinn's show with Sally Fallon, I ended up bringing on her book called Nourishing Traditions, which if you don't have, you should add it to your cookbooks. The first 60 pages really will lay out what you need to do to get healthy, based on the Weston A. Price Foundation, a dentist back in the early 1900s who visited several primitive cultures and found out why they weren't suffering from the diseases that the quote civilized unquote people were living with. So today I'm going to actually talk about a book that I wrote called Turn Back Your Biological Clock, and hold it up to the Facebook people. It's you can find it on Amazon, and it was a bestseller when it came out, and it's available in both audio and text. But you know, this is a book that really is a culmination of my 30 plus years of being in the healthcare fields, my observations of how people take care of themselves or don't. And when the emergency of pain arises, they decide to do something: pain, infirmary, or lack of functionality. Last week, I mentioned one of the statistics coming from my newest book, which is a New Hope 4 series. I'm not going to give the title out yet, but you know that 80% of all of the painkiller drugs, all the opiates, are taken by the people in the United States. 80% of all opiates are taken by the United States citizenship, something like $24 billion a year in opiates. So people are moving very fast. They hit the ground running, they hit the wall running, and you know, they don't have time to take care of their bodies, and then until it's too late, or until a point where they're in so much pain that they have to do something about it. My book, Turn Back Your Biological Clock, I'm just going to read the back of it, and then maybe talk about some of the concepts in it. And the book is called, it says, is it actually possible to turn back your biological clock and reverse the aging process? Science points to yes, kind of like looking at the 8-ball back in the day. To so many, health seems to just slip away. Then suddenly you are faced with the rude awakening that it might be too late to take control of your health. With almost 50% of Americans suffering from chronic disease, and now it's about 80%, our country is facing a terrible health crisis. The traditional healthcare system seems to be focused on managing symptoms, and Big Pharma is hard at work creating the next magic bullet, but to what avail? If you're interested in walking a different path and creating a better life through better health, meet Alfred McCoy, a typical aging baby boomer who woke up one morning to embrace his mortality. Follow Alfred and his friend Judy as they walk the path of self-discovery, not only to regain their health, but also to find true happiness through purpose and understanding. In his latest book, Turn Back Your Biological Clock, best-selling author Dr. Duncan McCollum explains the principles of regenerative healthcare, reveals how in as little as 3 to 8 weeks, you can begin to reverse your biological clock and then start to enjoy life again. Also dismantles the phrase, fix a cell to get well. If you're on a journey to create an incredible healthy body and live the rest of your life with a vibrant health and happiness, then Turn Back Your Biological Clock is a must read. So, I've talked often about fix a cell to get well, what that means. I was a group of us doctors. There's many of us in the Revelation Health or Health Centers of the Future. Dr. Pompa is the leader of the group, but brings on all kinds of experts in the world. He brought on David Minkoff last week, and he was talking about amino acids, which are basically protein nitrogen based, and the role of amino acids in healing our body, all of the enzyme activity, and in every cell, we need these things functioning, especially the brain. We are so deplete of them because of the depleted soil, the toxins in our environment, and just not eating well. And oftentimes our digestive systems are so damaged from the bacteria, antibiotics that we've taken, the chemicals that we've consumed, either knowingly or unknowingly, the food that's filled with GMOs that our body can't recognize and or digest. So our body has a hard time, and our digestive system has a hard time doing its job, which is our gut, along with 100 trillion bacteria in there that actually convert the foods we eat to one of two things: either nutrients that we can get to our cells and create energy out of, that's the healthy microbiome, or the opportunistic microbiome, the bad guys who got in there taking advantage of the fact that our intestinal walls are permeable and actually eat our food and poop toxins that get into our cells and create disease. They turn on bad genes inside the cells. So the thing is that so many people are going down this path. We live a good life. Hopefully we're happy, busy, making a living, creating families, or creating careers, pursuing careers. And oftentimes the opportunity to take care of our health is one of the last things that we take advantage of. And, a lot of times we're having to eat food that we wouldn't normally eat. We cook it in things like microwaves that don't really preserve the vitamins in the food and the natural elements in the food. And one day you just kind of wake up and realize that you should have been healthier. You could have been healthier. You could have been doing something else to be healthy. I think it's one of those things that you don't wake up until it's too late so many times. And then there's a lot of people that are actually doing a pretty good job. There's definitely people that, are elite athletes. They're doing well. They're probably the upper 10% of the people that are healthy, because a lot of them are lucky enough to just have good genes and have never gone down the path of the, drug and alcohol path, or the bad food, junk food run. And then there's also the stressors in life, family. In my new book, New Hope for blank, 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 I talk about role models with growing up. Role models, what were our parents? Were they happy? Did they get along? Were they just getting by? What role did they have in helping their kids learn how to go out and create a family, create a life, create success, and not feel like they had barriers put on them or limits? So many times kids and even adults are put in a position where they don't know that up is up and how high up can be. I don't think anybody knows how high up is. One of my teachers years ago, one of my mentors, told the story of the fleas in the jar. And you've probably heard me talk about this before, but it's been a while. They did an experiment where they put a bunch of fleas inside a big quart container with a lid on it. And the fleas, in order to try to find freedom, kept jumping up, and they kept hitting their little flea heads on that lid. And they went on and on and on. Finally, one day they took the lid off, and the fleas would not jump any higher than the lid was. So they got conditioned. So many people go to school and they kind of go along with the crowd. There's a few that stick out. But we're told to go to school, get a good education, get a job, raise a family, and all that's well and fine. But right now, so many people are focused on, well, I don't know if it's a true statement anymore, because so many people are focused on health. But for the last several decades, we've been told to put the money away for our legacy or our retirement. And so many people I know have a pretty good 401k. Some lost it all. But the thing is that one legacy that we have not been taught at all is the legacy of your health up until the day you die. Because right now we know so many of the people that are left of the greatest generation. I think there are very few left. My mother-in-law is turning 101 this month. She's healthy as an ox. She lives in Austin, Texas. Lost 40 pounds on the ketogenic diet when she was living with us a few years ago. Mentally astute, but couple things. She's got amazing genetics. And the genes that she does have that could turn on to give her mortalities or turn on different kind of infirmaries, her body, they haven't turned on. Her body's been able to fight it off. So there's a couple reasons. One is the amount of toxicity in her body has not been more than her body could handle. And the other is that she's just a sturdy, has a sturdy frame, sturdy body. And probably thirdly, and more important than all, is her mental drive. She was a captain in the WAC in World War, the WAC in World War II, the Women's Auxiliary Corps. And, she's a pretty tough lady. And she just is a testimony for staying healthy. But so many people actually just kind of wake up one day unhealthy. And then they wonder what they can do. So I'm going to go ahead and take my first break here. Listen to a couple of my patients who have experienced the soft wave machine or the stem cell machine, the TRT machine. And it's amazing. It's amazing. Of course, it's not going to work for everybody out there, but it works for the majority. And you have a chance to find out how it can change your health. And it's a shortcut to improving your health so that you can do the other things that you need to really get your health back. So we'll listen to this and I'll be back in a couple minutes. McCollum, and I would like you to listen to a couple testimonials from my patients about our new TRT machine. You should come try it, but here's what they have to say.
Hi, I'm Lauren Spencer, a local realtor. Lately, I've had trouble with my feet, and I'm an avid walker, avid biker, avid golfer, and my feet were aching all the time. And I tried Duncan's TRT machine, which is an amazing stem cell machine that rejuvenates the cells. And my feet, I've had like 3 or 4 sessions with the machine, and my feet are like new, no aches, no pains. It's a miracle.
Originally, I heard about it on the radio and I was a little apprehensive, but I came in and got the treatment, and miraculously, I mean, immediately I got relief. And we're talking about 3 years of 24/7 neuropathy, all kinds of pain, medical doctors. And in one treatment, it changed my life. I mean, it gave my life back because I was able to function and do things and not be in excruciating pain and get some sleep. And I'm going to continue to come back, and I highly recommend it to anyone.
So call today for your $49 introductory special on the TRT machine to see if it works for you. Call 831-459-9990. 831-459-9990. McCollum Family Chiropractic.
You will see, it will make a better road. You search and you reach down inside. And you'll look when you find there's a light you can hide. You can be free. You can be free. You can rise.
Hi, everybody. I'm back, Dr. Duncan McCollum. By the way, you can listen to these radio shows on KSCO.com, but also I have a podcast, McCollum Wellness Radio Podcast, and we've got probably 80 shows up there, all kinds of good information. You can listen to this while you're driving, commuting, trying to get to sleep at night, whenever you like to listen to podcasts. And there's some really good information. I hope you find it useful. If you have anybody you know that is having trouble and you think they might be open to at least getting another viewpoint, send them a text or something saying, listen to McCollum Wellness Radio podcasts on Amazon, or Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you find them. And I really appreciate you guys spreading the word, because the healthier we become as a planet, the better off we'll be as a whole. So I started off talking about my book, Turn Back Your Biological Clock, and I read the back of it, and I'm going to read a little bit more of it. This is a story. I've written 4 historical fiction books. By the way, I was voted second best author, local author in Santa Cruz 2 years in a row. I've only been writing for a couple years. I couldn't even read till I was 28. So, the fact that I'm 66 and have 6 published books and another one coming is kind of amazing to me. So, but the historical fiction books are really fun. There's 4 of them, 2 health books. Turn Back Your Biological Clock is the one I'm going through today, and the other one is New Hope for Sciatica. So anyway, I'm going to just kind of read. When I was before the pandemic, quote unquote, came, I was doing classes every week at my office. We had a really great group coming in. We were doing intermittent fasting and the ketogenic diet variation, ancient healing strategies, all the steps that you need in order to make the intermittent fasting or ketogenic diet work, not just a few steps that work for a while but end up making you sick. So at any rate, I would talk about this, and I'm going to read the author's note here, what I wrote to those people and read to them one day. Whatever happened to the good old days, the days that came and went, being footloose and fancy free? Well, what's funny is I still feel as young as ever. I just wish my body would cooperate. I remember hanging out at People's Park back in the early 70s, going over to Haight-Ashbury and seeing shows at the Avalon Ballroom, Fillmore West. It seemed I could stay up all night long and put as many unmentionable things in my body as I pleased and still wake up refreshed, albeit 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, that was close to 50 years ago. The body just doesn't recover quite so easily. One day I was working with one of my patients, an older lady, maybe in her 70s. She was hard of hearing and her body was a bit feeble. We got to talking about where she grew up. New York, she said. Huh, I replied. Were you around for Woodstock? Yep, she said. I was there. That's when it hit me. My body's getting old. I started looking at my older patients with a new set of eyes. These guys may have bodies that may be starting to be frail, but they have amazing stories to tell. Then I started thinking, what happened to the rebel within us? When did we start to conform? My God, did I even say that word? I thought we were supposed to turn on, tune in, and drop out. Remember the famous line from the song, My Generation by Pete Townsend of The Who, sung by Roger Daltrey, as he stuttered the words, I hope I die before I get old. I hope I die before I get old. And don't forget Abby Hoffman's cautionary line, don't trust anybody older than 30. Well, to any old hippies or beatniks out there who are reading this book, I guess the joke is on you. You're still alive, and at this writing, so is Daltrey and Townsend. I think many of us lived our lives back then with little regard for the future, casting our fate to the wind. I guess that is how younger people think. Let's call it arrogance of youth. It may all be well and good that we did survive. We all made a living and are still here to talk about it, but to what cost? Our quality of health is terrible. In fact, if you weren't aware of it, we are rated 47th in the world for health. It makes one wonder why we were all doing our thing and learning to survive. Was some faction making a business out of keeping us sick? Wasn't Wonder Bread supposed to build strong bodies in 12 ways? Weren't Wheaties the breakfast of champions? Didn't Clark Kent endorse sugar frosted flakes? And weren't PF Flyers supposed to make us run our fastest and jump our highest? I think we are duped. As a historical fiction writer with 4 published books under my belt, this educational book was written in a story format to keep it both interesting and informative. I have developed some characters to represent different aspects of our current society. Today, 50% of our population is either diabetic or pre-diabetic. It's now 60%. 30 million Americans have been diagnosed with thyroid disorders, and 80 million Americans have been diagnosed with multiple chronic diseases. Even over 50% of our children have been diagnosed with at least one chronic disease, 50%. The list goes on. Something must be done about it. In this book, I will guide you through the most current natural healthcare trends and teach you how to take charge of your own health. You'll discover, just like so many of my patients did, that you can change your life by taking control of your health. The processes I cover in this book were researched and utilized by some of the greatest names in natural and restorative healthcare. I had the privilege to know, study, and work with some of the top clinicians and researchers on the planet, and I am happy to share it with you. So, that was kind of the preamble to my workshop with my patients. Is there is so much information out there on how to be healthy, and so much information on there on how to just kind of cover up your symptoms. Listen, sometimes that's all you can do. You've waited too long, or you've had a bad accident or been exposed to something terrible. Western medicine is number one at being able to help you feel comfortable and mitigate some of those symptoms. And, when my appendix ruptured in last November, if it wasn't for Western medicine, I'd be dead. So no doubt we have the best emergency healthcare system on the planet. But the fact that most of us, or the majority of the people over 65, are on 5 medications is kind of startling. And we are being told to take medications that you may or may not necessarily need. Now, your medical doctor is your authority on that, but if you're taking anything that is to handle a dysfunctional body organ, you know, something that's a liver that's not working well and it's creating toxins or bad digestion or too much cholesterol, or kidneys that aren't working that are creating high blood pressure and things along that line, and gout, asthmas, because your lungs aren't working right. These bodies are made to last for 125 years. There's studies that show that. The thing is that some don't make it much past the crib with sudden infant death syndrome. Then you have the George Burnses of the world living to be 105. You know, so what is your goal? What do you want to do? Where are you at with your life? Have you got to a point where you're dissatisfied and you can just lay on the beach or watch TV or hike or do what you want? Is that where you thought you would be when you started? Or are you going, wow, I would like to be able to do more? I have so many patients come in that have been with me for 20, 25 years, maybe even some over 30, that are saying, you know, I just want to be able to pick my grandkid up. I just want to be able to get down on the floor and play with my cat. And those little things, the swollen knees, the bad hips, the low back problems, the numbness and tingling in the feet from diabetics, and all of this kind of stuff, you know, you could draw a line in the sand. Remember the book by Robert Frost? You know, the one where he says, I came to a fork in the road and he picked it up and ate with it. No, that's just the wrong story. No, I came to the fork in the road, and you know, I took the path less traveled by, and it made all the difference. So last week I talked about the cattle going down the chute, and at the end of the chute there's a guy who's bopping them on the head and taking them off to the butcher shop. One cow about halfway back in the crowd looks up and sees what's happening, and he goes, move, go this way. No, don't go that way. You know, and all the cows look at him and just go moo and move forward. So I cannot believe in the last 10 years how many health centers have popped up in Santa Cruz on almost every corner. And that is there to handle symptoms. You know, it's just crazy to me that people are not more concerned about what they're putting in their body. Again, if you have a physician telling you need to take something, talk to the physician, not me about it. But know that you can reverse your conditions. The greatest physician that ever lives right inside of you. It's called your innate intelligence. And it knows what to do. It just doesn't need any interference. So if we can teach you how to get the problems out of the communication from the brain to the pituitary gland, to your hormones, to your cells, to your elimination system. So basically you take in foodstuffs into your digestive system, your gut, gets to the bloodstream, gets to the cells, goes through the liver to be cleansed and get out of your body through your large intestine and bladder. It's a pretty cool system. Each cell in your body does something like 800 quadrillion functions a second, all controlled by this innate intelligence. 800 quadrillion functions a second, all 75 to 100 trillion cells that you have. So there's a system that if you throw a wrench in there, it may not work as well as it could. And the point is that you can do something about it. My office is in Capitola, McCollum Family Chiropractic. I do want to take a minute to talk about chiropractic, because chiropractic is the largest alternative healthcare system there is, yet we only treat 11% of the population. And back in the turn of the last century, chiropractors, when Western medicine started to be created, and they talked about this, Sally Fallon talked about this last week, that the hospitals were closed down, the teaching institutions for homeopathic were closed down by big money, oil money, who wanted to get allopathic medicine in, which was sulfa drugs made from oil and other synthetic chemicals. And chiropractors were being thrown in jail for just practicing their craft. We have many heroes in our time in the 20s who would get thrown in jail, they get out of jail and go open up again. And unfortunately, some of you were out there going, yeah, probably where they should all be. But, you know, quite honestly, if you haven't experienced chiropractic in a healing fashion, a lot of people have gone for a neck pain or a low back pain or something along that line, which is awesome. But understanding that chiropractic really works with every cell, organ, and tissue in the body, and works with the organ function, helps your liver, your heart, your lung, and your pancreas. Take care of this thing. You know, don't just keep putting other chemicals in it while it's like if you had a car that was, you know, 50 years old and sludge was in the oil tank, and you just kept putting oil in to replace the oil that was burned out, but you never clean out the sludge. Well, your body's got to get cleaned out. We've got to do something about it. So in a second, we're going to take another commercial break. Then when we come back, I'm going to read a little bit of the first chapter of my book, Turn Back Your Biological Clock. They're all available on Amazon. There's 6 on there. My first book is The Adventures of the Little Big Jim. Then Journeys In, which goes to China in 1840 or 1860. Then there's Kaleidoscope, which is a World War I fighter. My great uncle fought in World War I. He was a pilot. This is a story about his character going to fight for France before the United States joined the war. The United States didn't join the war for quite a while. And then my other one is called Coaling Station A, which is a murder mystery. So they're all on Amazon, as well as Turn Back Your Biological Clock and New Hope for Sciatica. And, you know, I was voted the second best author, so maybe you can get on there and see if you like them or not. Tell a friend. I would love to have people enjoy my stories more. And my new one, which it comes out, I think it's going to be probably one of the best I've written. But at any rate, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes. This is Dr. Duncan McCollum. Don't forget to come in and try our $49 special this week. It's the TRT special stem cell. It could make a huge difference in your ability to enjoy your life. I'll be right back. This is Dr. Duncan McCollum, and I would like you to listen to a couple testimonials from my patients about our new TRT machine. You should come try it, but here's what they have to say.
A year and 2 months ago, I got knocked down by a horse, and I got a grade 2 pull on my hamstring, and from there everything went to hell. I was walking 3.5 miles a day, and went from that to walking less and less because it was so painful, and my other knee started hurting me. And then I stepped off a ladder, jammed my knee. It took me the next morning 5 minutes by the time I stood up to get out of my bedroom. It was so painful. At the same time, I found out about the TRT from the doc, and I knew that that was for me. So almost feeling completely normal. So it's been great. I was walking stiff-kneed on one side because it was just flopping out of place. Now I can bend my knee and walk. I totally recommend this one time, and you'll just go, whoa.
You don't realize how much you use your toes for balance until there's no feeling in them. And so I've got the feeling back in my toes, and my balance is greatly improved. Definitely recommend it.
So call today for your $49 introductory special on the TRT machine to see if it works for you. Call 831-459-9990. 831-459-9990. McCollum Family Chiropractic.
Just try to remember the strength that we find. Oh, yeah. We can be free. We can be free. We can rise above. We can be free. we can be free.
Hi, this is Dr. McCollum. I'm back. That song is called We Can Be Free, We Can Rise Above by Steve Funderburg, sung by Tony Lindsay, 8-time Grammy Award winner. And you can get that song on Apple Music or Spotify. Just look up Steve Funderburg, Funderburg. He's got all kinds of great music on there. Good friend of mine. We played music together for years, and he's doing great. And I really appreciate him with his song talking about we can rise above, we can be free, you know, and when it's time to make a change, make the change. So that's really what I'm trying to do, is get people to make a little bit of difference in their life, maybe not go down the path where they're got dementia or health issues to a point where they can't change in time, to the last years of their life are not so fun and not so happy. And you can do something about that. So I'm going to read a little bit out of my book called Turn Back Your Biological Clock. This is called The Wake Up Call. And this is, oh, wait a minute, that's chapter 1. I'll just read chapter 1. I was conscious for a few minutes. The throbbing in my head blunted the sterile scent of the antiseptic room. When I finally could move my arm, I reached to find what was clogging my nose. The tubing that extended around my ears trailed off to the right and then off the bed. There was a dull burning in my right foot. When I tried to itch it with my left, there was nothing there. My right foot was gone. Startling myself to consciousness, I forced open my eyes. I was alone. There were several machines attached to various parts of my body. I recognized what must have been a heart monitor as I focused on the dancing red line, which ensured me that I was alive. The room hummed with various sounds of life monitoring instruments. There was a small window in the room, and as my memory began to return, I focused on the smudge spot the cleaners must have missed. I'll not make the fishing trip this year, I guess, I thought to myself. I hadn't missed one in 35 years, but one by one, the boys were just fading away. Was I the next one to find my way home? What went wrong? What happened to my death? What happened to my dreams? Why was I here in this hospital bed at 63 years old, overweight, lungs failing from emphysema, diabetic, and now minus one limb? I did everything right, played by the book, except for the early days. Sure, I grew up in the 60s in San Francisco Bay Area. I was there to see the riots, hang out at People's Park, and did almost every drug in the book. Well, didn't we all? But that was long ago. At that time, I guess one would call me a hippie or a dropout or a druggie. I had no real purpose or goal except to find the next party to see where it took me. But then again, there was the Vietnam War, the threats of nuclear power plants, the earthquakes, and of course, hydroelectric power plants built on North America's rivers were either heating the water too much or blocking salmon and steelhead from returning to their happy breeding grounds. There was a lot to be mad about, and mad we were. The greatest generation were still in power and were not happy with the politics. No one knew who shot Kennedy. Kids were being killed at Kent University, and no one could prove that we had landed on the moon. But not only that, Joan Baez was making a stand, Timothy Leary was warping our minds, and Bob Dylan was putting it all down in his rhymes. It's funny, I remember going shopping in places like Kink's Department Store, the Co-op Park and Shop, Safeway, and hearing all the music which played classical nonsense. That was a sign of the times, the time of innocence. Well, maybe a time of ignorance. There was nothing like social media. Huntley and Brinkley reported the news while AM radio, newsprint led the parade. Big business went unchecked. Federal departments such as the FDA, CDC, and NIH, National Institute of Health, were climbing into the bed with the food and drug industry, and certain powers were in the works to determine to dumb down America. How did we get stuck in all of this? We were the dreamers. We wanted to go back to the plow, burn wood stoves, and even ride a horse. I was just about to doze off when the door clambered open. presenting who would have been my doctor, making his morning rounds. He was an older, short man, about 5'4" tall, his only hair pressed wildly above his ears, leaving the top of his head naked. Well, actually, I misspoke. There was quite a crop exiting both ears and nostrils, as well as the shadow in his eyes. His wrinkled whitish smock spoke of the marinara sauce that apparently remained from last night's menu. And by the size of his belly, it looked like a meal was something that he rarely missed. He appeared to be rather groggy, as if he had just woken up. He looked at me without recognition, then grabbed the chart on the foot of the bed, scratched his nose with the back of his hand. He sniffled, then pulled out a handkerchief and sneezed 3 times quite abruptly. I felt like telling him that if he had only trimmed his nose hairs, he might solve his problem. I decided better of it. As he rifled through my chart, which seemed to carry the balance of my life, I began to wonder who he was and why I put my life in the hands of a stranger. I have always been a friendly man, and my early years taught me discretion. But now, here I was, being held captive, lying flat on my back, some 80 pounds overweight and shy of my right foot. Rasmussen, his name tag gave it away, walked over to the right of my bed, then grabbed the sheet that flung it to the side, exposing my missing limb. Examining the dressing, we both saw the seepage, indicating the freshness of the wound. "What do I do about the itching, Doc?" I asked in earnest. "Don't rightly know, son. The foot's in the incinerator by now. I'll have someone come in and change the bandage." With that, he dropped the chart back in the basket at the foot of the bed and exited the room. That's the last I ever saw of Rasmussen. So anyway, that's, a startling image of what's happening in a lot of people's lives. They're not doing anything until it's too late. They're missing the warning signs. One of my girlfriend's neighbors, a friend, just passed away, I think last night, of what was throat cancer. He was chewed tobacco, he drank a lot, and it's really rough because these habits that we get ourselves into early on, especially back when we were young, and I was arguing whether they were healthy or not, but really, I think it's time to take an assessment of where you want to be in your life, what you want to do with your life. This world is on its ear right now. There's so much going on in politics and healthcare, in the destroying of lives, the shootings, and it just seems like whenever you open the door, there's a whirlwind of something going on out there. What happened to the good old days? The good old days came and went, but we can create them again, and it's all in your mind. It's in the frame of your mind. What you decide to do with your life is really in your hands, and it's amazing what your body can do. Again, the greatest physician who ever lived inside of you. All you have to do is get the interference out of the way and let the body do what it's supposed to do. If you liked any part of that book, it's called Turn Back Your Biological Clock. I wrote it. I think it was published in 2001. And I've got a bunch of other ones you can read, but I'm really hoping that people take this time in the next 4 or 5 months before winter hits again to clean their bodies up, get their immune systems healthy. Find out what area of your health you could improve, because again, worst thing that I can imagine happening to anybody is to grow old without a memory. And maybe you have enough money so your kids and family don't have to take care of you, or God forbid, the state. But why don't we take a look at our legacy financially? Let's look at our legacy health-wise the same way. The warning signs are there, and you don't want to wait till the symptoms come extremely to do anything about it. It's often too late. Chiropractic that I like to practice is we get people to come in. We do an evaluation of their spine, usually take x-rays. We have digital x-rays, and we evaluate the full spine and see where it's wearing out more than other places. Oftentimes a small slip or fall or injury that doesn't get fixed completely will cause the disc to wear out between the two bones. And once it's worn out enough, it's called osteoarthritis. it can put pressure on that nerve and we'll never get the disc back. You might have signs and symptoms now and then, low back pain. Oh, it comes and goes, it's 3 or 4 days and it goes away. I take some Tylenol or whatever it is to take. But eventually it's like that tire with a nail in it. You go, tire's low of air, I'm gonna go blow it up. And you keep doing that until one day there's a blowout. So that's what happens with our health. We cover up our symptoms until one day there's a blowout. You don't have to do that. Chiropractic is a great way to get started. Anybody who's listening to the show, if you want to come in for a consultation, just call my office and say, I listened to Dr. McCollum's show. I'd like to get a complimentary examination and consultation at my office. And if it looks like we need x-rays, just mention it to me in the room and I'll give you a good price on that as well. My goal is to see if you can get help. So the physical part of health is the nervous system. And once nothing will work if your nervous system is not working well. Take a light that's plugged into the wall and the wire's frayed. The light bulb goes off and on, and the shocks of the wire surging blows the light bulb out. Well, you can replace that light bulb and it will work and not work and blow out as long as you want. But if you don't fix the wiring from the wall to the light bulb, from the power source to the light bulb, you're never going to get it fixed. That's just a vicious circle. How many different systems in your body are working this way? The nerve coming out of your top of your skull in your first vertebra, called the vagus nerve, goes outside of the spine there and goes to every cell, every organ in your body. And it controls your endocrine system and your your autonomic nervous system. Then the spine goes down 24 segments and exits at every level, including your sacrum. So there's 31 pairs of spinal nerves that split up to 75 trillion to 100 trillion cells, depending on when you lost count last time. So getting your nervous system checked is key, not just for pain or symptoms, but to make sure that the organs are functioning well. There was a gentleman who came into my office last week. He'd been gone golfing down south and he'd been in pain for 5 months. He came in and said, well, yeah, I've gone to chiropractors and I go when I'm in pain, and I've heard this story enough. I patiently listen and say, let's take some x-rays. And his last 2 vertebrae were all but fused. And unfortunately, he had not gotten the information that if he were to take care of that joint, it would likely not be fused today. And now, unfortunately, he's been indoctrinated in a way that he goes, well, when I'm in pain, I'll come back. And I always say, if you could come back the day before you were in pain, that would be great, but nobody can ever do that. Chiropractic is a lot like, or your nervous system's a lot like a cavity. You can have a cavity for years and have no feeling, but you still have a cavity. And then one day, that cavity gets that nerve root right when you're going on vacation. Well, now you've got a major problem, and that's when the symptoms show up. You can cover that up with putting a clove on your tooth like grandma used to do. You can go get some medication to cover it up or pull the tooth, but it's way too late. So your health legacy is to take care of your health now. Again, call my office for a complimentary consultation and examination. McCollum Chiropractic, 831-459-9990. Let's see if we can get Santa Cruz to be a healthier county. There's only 11% of people go to chiropractors. Boy, I was carried into a chiropractor at 20 years old. I'd fallen out of a tree at 12, ended up breaking my back, but nobody diagnosed it. At 20, I was in so much pain. The doctor had my 2 friends hold me up while he took an x-ray. And then he came out and said, when did you break your back? I started crying because I'd been in pain off and on all my young life, wondering why I could not do what my friends did without excruciating pain or just having to stop anyway. And he did an adjustment. I was carried in, I walked out on my own volition. And, I was talking to this gentleman. He broke his back when he was 17. I broke mine when I was 12. He's been getting adjusted as needed. And he's done a pretty good job, better than most, but you know, why not just get evaluated? Find out where it's at. Not everybody's the right person for my office. You know, we don't accept all patients, and all patients don't accept our office and what we do. But with the stem cell machine, the TRT machine, that is, chiropractic, and then the detox program that we do, which I've talked about in other shows, you have a much better chance of living a healthier, longer life, so you can enjoy whatever years you have left. And to some people, I treat a lot of kids. They come in at less than a year old, and sometimes less than a week old. And you know, they come in at over 100 years old. So the main thing is that your body has a chance to heal itself. The greatest physician that ever lived lives inside of you. It's called your innate intelligence. There's 3 major stressors in life: mental, physical, and chemical. And I've had people come in with all 3 of them messed up, or 1 of them messed up. But you know, the brain functions based on what information the nervous system brings into it, turns it to a chemical that goes as a hormone throughout the rest of your body to have the cells function. Your cells, all 80 quadrillion of them, 75 quadrillion, 100 quadrillion, however many there are all controlled by the brain. If you step on that garden hose going from your brain to that cell, it's not going to work. It will eventually get sick and disease. So don't let that happen to you. 1 bad cell is like 1 rotten apple in a pile of apples, and pretty soon you got a whole organ that's failing. So I hope this is informative. I hope it helps. I hope you take advantage of it. I hope you buy my book, Turn Back Your Biological Clock. I have a lot of hopes today, and dreams as well. So go to Amazon, buy Turn Back Your Biological Clock by Dr. Duncan McCollum. If you like any of the historical fiction titles, get them as well. My new book will be out before the end of the year, I'm hoping. And it's going to be, I think you'll really enjoy the subject matter. Again, I'm keeping it a little under my hat. And but once it comes out, I think you'll see why. All right, well, thank you so much. This has been Dr. McCollum, McCollum Wellness Radio. You can go to McCollum Wellness Radio podcast, McCollum, and get a lot of these shows again. We'll see you next week. Thank you.
We will rise above. We will rise. We sing